Yeah, I'm interested in something that seems to be coming out that's rather specific to your discipline. I'm not a historian, and so always one of the questions in my head when we have these seminars, because we're working deliberately across disciplines, sort of what's happening in this particular discipline. And Mary, what you were saying rings a bell, because since I sort of accidentally strayed out of literary criticism and into something which I didn't think was history, but was read by some people as history, which is writing about the RAF and Ulrike Meinhof, I've been accused exactly equal numbers of times of being a shameless sympathisantin and of being a reactionary who has no sympathy for the idealism of the movement. Really absolutely equal. And what struck me there very strongly was how my narrative was meeting the narrative of the reader reviewer on every occasion. And that's why I start to wonder, because when I was writing literary criticism, that isn't narrative in the same way that history is, and so the reader's response is rather different. It's not bumping up against the narrative they're carrying. I'm wondering, sort of listening to all of you speak with great interest, because I'm always interested in, where does narrative stop and where does history start, and how do historians engage with the notion of what they do as narrative, because narrative is such a curious and human and emotionally, experientially laden thing. That there's something really rather particular about what you do, and perhaps there are other disciplines represented in the room who will say, no, we're narrative too. But it seems to me history is so narrative, and that in some ways you can't manage, and this goes back to your questions, which I thought was very interesting. How can you manage the dialogic engagement with your reader when your discipline is as narrative based as yours seems to me to be? Can you manage it? Can you be in control of how it's read, actually? End of question.
Yeah, and we touch upon the problem that the concepts, the word, the terms we use are used in the public debate as well. Last week, a financial man, owner of the Weber Bank in Berlin, has written a letter to me, and he said that I want to destroy Prussia and the idea of Prussia and the memory of Prussia, and he can engage in a debate with me as if he is a professional as I am. If he would be a physician or a natural scientist, I never would dare to ask someone of this profession if he is right about thinking about the black holes and the stars. But in historical questions, everybody can utter his opinion as if he would be a specialist of historiography. And that has to do with the problem that our semantics are the semantics of the public discussion in the feuilleton and elsewhere. And normally we have oftentimes great problems to define our analytical concepts, which are perhaps the same words but not the same terms as the public thinks. An ordinary life or normalization does not mean happiness and pursuing your life. It means something very special. For example, the German word Eigensinn, which you cannot translate as far as I know, is very important. But most of our readers understand Eigensinn as to be stubborn or something like that. And it's very complicated in the discussion, because normally nobody discovers the difference of the historians' use of the same terms and the public use of these terms.
This is again translation. I mean,
yeah, and the limits of
the limits of translation, and we have to translate words which are the same in both spheres.
Yeah.
The solution is to be Hans Mobson and not Daniel Goldhagen and talk about polycratic regimes and structures and do everything in the passive tense, rather than nasty Germans murdering Jews.
Kumulative Radikalisierung and things like that.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, that's fine.
No, that's right.
I mean, the problem you refer to is perhaps very much particularly a problem of contemporary history writing, I think, because you have, through your own memories, your certain narrative of a particular phase, say the unification or whatever, and even the sort of the family tradition plays a role for the younger generation, how the Nazi past is represented, but these rival narratives become much softer, or the differences if you write about problems of the medieval kings or whatever, then it's certain points perhaps where it might differ, but where the public doesn't engage in the same way because the public
They don't have a narrative engagement.
They don't have a narrative engagement. They don't get disturbed by that particular narrative, and whereas your narrative of the rough might collide with my memories and what the vague memories I have of my newspaper reading and whatever of the time.
I'm not convinced in all aspects. If we would discuss the problems of the French Revolution in the French context of the 80s of the Bicentenaire, if we would have discussed the witch trials in the era of feminism in the German universities, we have very fast we have the shift from contemporary history to other times. And I still remember from my study years Annette Kuhn and the problems of democratization, and she spoke about Spartacus and the slavery upheaval because it's so very important for our emancipation of today. So you can shift even to the antiques with the same problems.
So you two have just beautifully exemplified my distinction between communities of connection and direct connection and communities of identification for whom some aspect of the past is salient. So thank you very much.
We've got it on tape.
Pleasure.